My name's Connor, I'm an audiologist and I'm expert in ears, and today I'm going to show you some earwax removal videos. There is liquidy soupy earwax, hard brick-like earwax, and a particular fungus called Aspergillus niger. Earwax is roughly half skin, a little bit of sebum, which is like a fatty oily substance, and something very special called ceremunous secretion. And ceremunous glands secrete this kind of sweaty liquid, but it's got special molecules in it which fight bacteria and try and keep your ears safe. You only ever need to remove your earwax if it's bothering you. So if you have hearing loss, or your ears feeling full or uncomfortable, or you feel like there's an obvious blockage or pressure, that is abnormal and you should go and see your doctor or audiologist or practice nurse. So this is something I would describe as sort of the soupy kind of quagmire type wax. So you can see actually that the debris has sort of a texture to it, like a wavy texture and wavy lines in it. So that means that it's basically dead skin that's sort of emulsified, and it's been treated essentially with fizzy drops, so sodium bicarb ear drops probably. And what that does is it makes the debris liquefy and then slide further down the ear canal and then against the drum. And that really does cause quite a significant hearing loss and feeling of discomfort. And what's happened here is that it's kind of lost a little bit of its structure, which is quite difficult to deal with because usually this type of earwax is quite resistant to suction. The machine I'm using is called a Guardian ProJet. Basically, you have a tank.
Is that hurting?
And you have to fill that tank with water, which should be body temperature, about 37 degrees Celsius. And if it's too hot or too cold, then it will induce a caloric effect, which is where basically you're heating or cooling the fluid inside your inner ear, and that causes unpleasant vertigo, which is like a spinning dizziness, like you're drunk. So you put the instrument in the ear canal and you aim the water at the roof of the ear canal, so never straight down the ear, never aim it at the eardrum, and that's really when accidents happen, potentially perforation of the eardrum. So you aim it at the roof of the ear canal and you sort of move it like a sort of window washer, and what that does is it creates these sort of vortices in the water, and a gentle sort of swilling effect sort of goes into the ear and then just flushes straight back out into the cup. So it's on the lowest setting and it's just kind of squirting into the ear, and we just kind of leave it there and let the water do the work. You know, most people find it quite pleasant. There's a little bit of debris or slime left on the eardrum. In that situation, we'd probably go in with suction or maybe continue the irrigation for a little bit longer if the patient can tolerate it. You'll definitely want to have some earwax left in there. Certainly not, up against the drum or anywhere near the eardrum. So a nice smearing or slick of wax around the ear canal will leave the patient protected against the ear drying out, protected against infection, itching, and obviously protection against foreign bodies as well. So that's a pretty nice looking eardrum right there. When I first saw it, I thought, oh, this will be an easy job. Because, the wax is right there, you can see it with your naked eye, so it's all good. But then as soon as I tapped on it with the probe, I thought, right, we're in for a heavy ride here. The only way I can describe it is sort of really like a brick. It was extremely tough. And I started with the suction, but that was, for all intents and purposes, pointless. So in this particular case, I used something called a Cawthorn hook number 6. And it's basically a very, very, very small metal right angle, essentially. The end is perhaps a little pointy, but it's not needle sharp. This was extremely impacted. The reason it's dark, much darker than the previous case, is because it's old. The older the wax is, the darker it is, and that's because it oxidizes. I try to be very, very gentle. The Cawthorn hook is small enough such that you can kind of get the hook round the debris and sort of disturb it and sort of leverage it out. So really, to put it bluntly, digging it out with a metal instrument was the only way, really. You tend to find with this very hard, impacted sort of brick-like wax that you can have pain as well. When the patient tries to self-treat with water-based drops, the plug will actually expand a little bit, so it'll absorb some of those drops and then increase in size temporarily. And if the plug is very deep in the ear canal, that can really, really hurt and cause a tremendous ache. The thing is, you always have to go in stages, because if you shove the hook in and then pull just in one go, you can cause barotrauma, which is basically damage via pressure. and that is excruciatingly painful. So you really have to go very, very carefully and tread lightly. What we can see here is that the sort of yellow frills that are coming off the main plug, that's just dead skin. When we see an impacted plug like this, there's usually sheets and sheets of dead skin enveloping it, sort of like lasagna basically. And then the sort of darker brown bit, that's very, very dense, dry, hard earwax, which has just formed over a long period of time. It's impossible to say how old it is, but yeah, it's definitely been in there a while. The scientific name for it, the particular fungus, is called Aspergillus niger. The casual name for it is black mold. Aspergillus niger lives everywhere. It wouldn't be a shock for me if there was some, on your hand right now or on your desk. It's very common. So the likelihood is it was either in the ear already, or it was on a fingernail or under a fingernail and the patient scratched their ear. The reason it's got out of control is anyone's guess. So for this, I'm using a suction probe to get the debris out of the ear. And really what I wanted to do was remove the bed of the fungus, the mycelium. And that's why you'll see this white clothy material with the sort of goo underneath it. That's the very thick, well-developed rooting part of the fungus on the eardrum, which is risky to some degree because that's the kind of situation where you can see a perforation. And usually what we tend to find is that patients who have these very well-developed fungal infections is more often than not because they've used a lot of antibiotic ear drops. The reason why it's bad to use antibiotic eardrops when you don't need it is because you're disrupting the natural balance of microorganisms in your ear. And if you kill off all the good bacteria, then the fungus has gone, hey, this is a party, and grown unchallenged. I couldn't get all of the mycelium out because it was sort of round the bend and it was in a very, very awkward position. But I achieved most of what I wanted to, which was to expose a nice healthy eardrum. And then, of course, that paved the way for the antifungal drops to do their job. This advice cannot be said enough. If your ear isn't bothering you, don't poke it, don't prod it, don't treat it with anything, don't put anything in it, and just leave it be. Most people will, maybe have an earwax blockage maybe once or twice or 3 times in their lives, but it's not something that you need to keep on top of regularly because your ears are self-cleaning and they will usually take care of themselves. There's a single gene in the human body that will determine if your earwax is wet or if it's dry and crumbly. So if you're from a European descent, then you will have that wet earwax gene. Or if you're, say, from an Asian culture like Japan, for example, then you will have a drier, crumbly, flaky earwax. And that's due to the fact that there's a gene which determines which one you have.